The day my son moved into his new house, he hugged me at the door and said, "Mom, don't worry. Nothing will change." I smiled at him. I told him I knew that. But deep inside, something already felt different. I watched him carry the last box inside. I stood on the sidewalk a little longer than I needed to. The front door closed gently. Not slammed. Not rushed. Just closed. And I realized I was no longer walking into that house without knocking. That may sound small. But for a mother, small things are never small. For 35 years, my life had been built around him. His school lunches. His doctor visits. His fears at night. His dreams for the future. Then one day, he built a new life. And I was not the center of it anymore. I never imagined that growing up could feel like being left behind. He did not say, "I don't need you." He did not say, "Go away." He just slowly stopped needing me the way he used to. And that hurt the most. Because when someone leaves in anger, you know why. But when someone leaves quietly, you are left alone with your own thoughts. And sometimes those thoughts are louder than any argument. This is the story of how my son built his new life. And how I had to learn to live in mind. My son, Daniel, was born on a cold winter morning. Snow covered the hospital parking lot. The sky was pale gray. I remember holding him close and thinking, "You are my second chance at joy." His father left when Daniel was 5. Not in anger. Not in a dramatic way. He simply chose a different life. After that, it was just me and my little boy in a small 2-bedroom house. I worked as a receptionist at a medical office. The hours were steady. The pay was modest. But it was enough. Every morning, I woke Daniel up with a soft knock on his bedroom door. "Time to rise and shine," I would say. He would groan and pull the blanket over his head. But 5 minutes later, he would be at the kitchen table eating cereal, his hair sticking up. In every direction. We had our routines. Friday night pizza. Saturday morning grocery shopping. Sunday afternoon movie on the couch. It was not a grand life. But it was ours. When he was 10, he got sick with a high fever one winter. I stayed up all night beside his bed, placing cool cloths on his forehead. He opened his eyes and whispered, "Mom, don't go." "I'm not going anywhere," I told him. And I meant it. For years, I meant it. I never remarried. Not because I could not. But because my heart felt full enough. Daniel grew taller. His voice deepened. He started driving. The first time he pulled out of the driveway alone, I stood at the window until the car disappeared around the corner. I told myself this was normal. Children grow. That is what they're meant to do. After high school, he chose a local college. "Close to home," he said with a grin. I pretended to tease him. "You just want my cooking." But inside, I was relieved. Even after graduation, he stayed nearby. Found a job in a small marketing firm, rented an apartment only 15 minutes away. He came over every Sunday evening for dinner. Just like always, we talked about his work, his friends, his future. Then one spring afternoon, he told me about her. Her name was Rachel. "She's different, Mom," he said. Different. I remember the way his eyes lit up when he said her name. I met her 2 months later. She was kind, confident, smart. She shook my hand firmly and said, "I've heard wonderful things about you." I wanted to believe that everything would stay the same. But deep down, I felt the ground shifting slightly beneath my feet. They dated for 3 years. When Daniel proposed, he came to tell me first. We sat at the same kitchen table where he once did homework. "I want to build a life with her," he said. I smiled. And I meant it. I wanted his happiness. I truly did. The wedding was beautiful. White roses. Soft music. Laughter filling the hall. When he danced with me, he said quietly, "You'll always be my first home." Those words stayed with me. First home. I held on to them longer than I should have. After the honeymoon, they moved into a house across town. Not far, but not walking distance either. At first, nothing seemed different. He still called, still visited. But slowly, the rhythm changed. Sunday dinners became twice a month, then once a month. "Rachel's parents invited us over," he would say. Or, "We just need a quiet weekend." I understood. At least I told myself I did. One evening, I stopped by with fresh cookies. I did not call first. I had never needed to. Rachel answered the door. Her smile was polite. Oh, we weren't expecting anyone. I was nearby, I said softly. She stepped aside, but I could feel it. I was entering their space. Not our space. Later, Daniel mentioned gently, Mom, maybe just text before coming over. The words were reasonable, but they felt like a small door closing. A few months later, they began talking about redecorating. New furniture. New paint. Rachel's taste was modern. Clean lines. Neutral colors. Daniel had always liked warm tones. Soft lighting. I noticed that his old armchair from his apartment was gone. Did you donate it? I asked casually. Rachel answered. It didn't fit the look. Daniel nodded. It's fine, Mom. I said nothing more, but I saw something happening. Piece by piece, his old life was being replaced. Not erased, just reorganized. One Thanksgiving, they chose to host dinner themselves. At their house, Rachel cooked. Her parents came. I brought a pie. As I sat at their table, I realized I was no longer at the head. I was simply one of many. That is when the quiet ache began. Not loud, not dramatic. Just steady. One night, I called Daniel because my car would not start. It was late. He answered, Mom, can this wait until morning? I hesitated. I supposed Rachel's voice murmured in the background. He lowered his voice. We're about to go to bed. I told him not to worry. I called roadside assistance instead. It was a small thing. But as I sat in my dark driveway waiting for help, I felt something settle in my heart. He was building a new life. And I was standing outside of it. After the night my car would not start, I told myself I was being sensitive.
He was married now.
He had responsibilities. Marriage changes things. I repeated that sentence many times in the weeks that followed. Marriage changes things. But knowing it and feeling it are not the same. Winter came early that year. The evenings grew darker sooner. I noticed I was spending more time alone in the living room with only the television for company. Daniel used to call during his drive home from work. Just checking in, he would say. Those calls became shorter, then less frequent. One afternoon, I sent him a message. Are you coming by Sunday? He replied 2 hours later. Not this week, Mom. Rachel's work has been stressful. She needs a quiet weekend. That phrase stayed with me. It was not wrong. A husband should care about his wife's needs. But I began to notice something. Her needs always came first. One evening, they invited me to dinner. Rachel had cooked pasta. The house looked beautiful. Warm lights. Soft music in the background. But I felt like I was walking into someone else's world. At the table, Rachel spoke about possibly taking a job in another city. It was a good opportunity. Better pay. A larger company. I felt my heart skip. Another city? I asked. Just 2 hours away, she said. Daniel squeezed her hand. We're thinking about it. I kept my voice calm. That's wonderful, if it's what you both want. He looked relieved. I realized then that he had already decided. He was just waiting for me to accept it. A few weeks later, the decision was final. They were moving. 2 hours may not sound far, but it is far enough to change everything. The day they packed the moving truck, I stood in the driveway holding a small box of things Daniel had left behind. Old school trophies. A framed picture of him at age 10. Do you want these? I asked. Rachel looked at Daniel. We don't really have space, she said gently. He hesitated. Maybe you can keep them, Mom.
Keep them.
As if they were museum pieces. I nodded. I will. When the truck drove away, I felt something inside me shift. Not break. Just shift. Like furniture being moved in a room you have lived in for decades. After they settled into their new house, the visits became less frequent. 2 hours is long enough to require planning.
Gas.
Schedules. Coordination. Maybe next month, he would say. I tried to visit once. Rachel greeted me kindly, but the rhythm felt different. Their routines did not include me. Their friends did not know me. Their neighbors did not know my name. I was an addition, not a constant. One evening, While sitting in their guest room, I heard them talking softly downstairs.
I did not mean to listen.
But I heard my name. Rachel's voice was calm but firm. I just feel like your mom still expects to be part of everything. Daniel sighed. She's alone. I know. But we're building something here. Building something here. That sentence settled in my chest. They were building. And I was not part of the foundation. The next morning, I left earlier than planned. Daniel hugged me at the door. You don't have to rush, he said. I have things to do at home, I replied. The drive back felt longer than 2 hours. When I reached my quiet house, I walked inside and listened. Silence.
No footsteps upstairs.
No sound of a shower running. No laughter from the living room. Just stillness. That was the first night I truly felt left behind. The real turning point came on my birthday. I turned 70. It was not a milestone I feared that I had lived a good life. But birthdays have a way of reminding you who shows up. Daniel had promised to visit. I'll be there by noon, he said. I cleaned the house the night before, baked a small cake, set the table with my best plates. Noon came, then 1 o'clock, then 2. At 3, my phone rang. Mom, I'm so sorry, he said. Rachel isn't feeling well. I can't leave her alone. I closed my eyes. I understand. We'll come next weekend. It's all right. After we hung up, I sat at the table looking at the cake. 70 candles felt unnecessary. I did not cry. I simply removed the plates and placed the cake back in the kitchen. That evening, I lit one small candle for myself.
Just one.
I whispered, "Happy birthday." And in that quiet moment, I understood something clearly. He was no longer choosing between events. He was choosing between lives. And his life was there, not here. A week later, he visited briefly. Rachel stayed home. She's still tired, he said. We sat in the living room. He looked older, more serious. Mom, he began carefully, I need you to understand something. I waited. My priority is my marriage now. That doesn't mean I don't love you, but I can't divide myself the way I used to. Divide myself. The words were honest, painful, but honest. I nodded slowly. I don't want to be something you have to divide, I said softly. He looked at me with relief. I just need you to trust that I'm not leaving you. But he had. Not in love, but in presence. In daily life. In small moments. After he left, I sat in the quiet house again. And this time, I allowed the truth to settle fully. My son had built a new life. And I was not meant to be the center of it. The weeks after that conversation were hard.
But they were also clarifying.
I stopped waiting for him to fill my calendar. I stopped measuring his love by how often he visited. Instead, I began looking at my own life. What had I set aside? What had I forgotten about myself? I joined a community choir. At church. My voice was not strong, but it felt good to sing again. I began volunteering at the local hospital, reading to patients who did not have family nearby. I planted flowers in the front yard. Small purple ones that bloomed brightly in spring. One afternoon, Daniel called unexpectedly. Mom, what are you doing? I'm at choir practice, I said. He sounded surprised. That's new. Yes, I replied. I decided it was time. There was a softness in his voice.
I'm glad.
Our conversations began to feel different.
Less heavy.
Less dependent. More equal. When they visited next, I did not rearrange my whole week. I did not cancel plans. I simply welcomed them into my life as it was. Rachel seemed more relaxed too. Perhaps she sensed that I was no longer holding on to something tightly. One evening, as they prepared to leave, Daniel hugged me longer than usual. Mom, he said quietly, thank you for understanding. I looked at him carefully. I had to learn, I answered. And I had. I learned that love changes form. I learned that motherhood is not ownership. I learned that letting go does not mean losing. It means trusting. If you are listening to this and your heart feels heavy, I understand. When your child builds a new life, it can feel like you are being left behind. But perhaps we are not left behind. Perhaps we are simply stepping into a new chapter. Our children move forward. And we must move too, not away from them, but toward ourselves. My son built a new life. And for a while I believed that meant I was no longer needed. But I was wrong. I am still his mother, just in a different way. And I am still a woman with a life to live. So if you find yourself standing in a quiet house tonight, remember this. You are not forgotten. You are evolving. And sometimes the bravest kind of love is the kind that lets go gently. And that is enough.